I was 52 when my grandparents died and left me everything. The house. The savings. $1 million in stocks. People expected me to break down crying or throw a party. I didn't do either. Instead, I drove up to their place in northern Ohio, 2 hours from Columbus, on a Saturday in early February. Snow on the ground, everything still. The kind of quiet where you can hear your own footsteps echo in the hallway. The house smelled the same. A little dust, a little cedar. My grandfather built most of it himself after he came back from Korea. Solid oak beams, real stone fireplace, no shortcuts. I stood in the living room for a long time. Not sad, not happy. Just strange. Like I didn't belong. I'd spent every summer there growing up, but now it felt like a museum. Frozen in time. And I was the last one left with the key. Back in Columbus, my phone started buzzing the next day. My brother Jake texted something vague. Heard the news. We should talk. My mom left a voicemail. I hope you're planning to share. That house has always been part of the family. I didn't reply. Not yet. Here's the thing about me. I've always been the quiet one. The one who doesn't argue. Doesn't make a fuss. I work remote IT contracts. Nothing flashy. Live alone in a rented condo. People assume that means I'm soft. Gullible. Easy to push around. But I knew the second the will was read that someone would try to take it from me. I wasn't surprised. Just tired. So I called Elaine Briggs, the estate lawyer my grandparents used. Old school, sharp, no nonsense. I told her I wanted everything in a trust, airtight. No public filings beyond what the county required. We got it done in 3 days. Ironclad. And I didn't tell a soul. I spent the next few weekends cleaning the place up, replacing locks, fixing the water heater. Took time off work and installed security cameras myself. Snow melted. Then came spring. And that's when they started circling. Jake showed up in a brand new Ford F-151 Sunday, like he just happened to be in the area. Asked if he could walk around. Said something about Mom really missing the old place. I didn't let him in. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I could feel the temperature shifting. Not the weather. Them. The way they looked at me. Like I was just a placeholder. A weak spot in the family chain they could squeeze until something popped. But this time, I wasn't going to be the weak spot. A few weeks after Jake's little visit, I got a letter. Certified mail. Thick envelope. Return address from some firm I'd never heard of in Cincinnati. When I opened it, I just sat there staring. Inside were copies of a quitclaim deed, supposedly signed by me, transferring the house to my mother. Backdated 3 months. Fake notary stamp. Even my signature, copied from old DMV paperwork, not even close to my current one. I should have been angry, but I wasn't. Just tired. Not surprised, not hurt. This was always who they were. This wasn't new. The only difference was, this time I was ready. I called Elaine. She laughed, in that dry, almost sarcastic way of hers. Said she'd seen worse. Asked me to bring everything in. I did. She didn't even flinch. Just slid it all into a folder and said, "We'll take care of it." Turns out, they filed the fake deed with the county too. Real official-like. As if throwing a stamp on a lie makes it truth. Elaine filed a fraud report. We sent in copies of the original trust, the will, the timestamped security footage showing me entering and exiting the house every weekend. She even had notarized records from the title transfer, dated weeks before their fake paperwork claimed. I kept everything. Dates, emails, taxes, even delivery slips from the new locks I bought. My mom called again a day later. This time, she didn't bother with guilt. She sounded pissed. Accused me of hoarding the house. Said the family deserved it. That my grandparents were confused in their last years. I didn't answer. Just listened and hung up. That night I walked through the empty house again. Still cold. I hadn't turned the heat on yet, just space heaters when I was around. I sat on the living room floor and stared at the stone fireplace. My grandfather used to light it every night, even in spring. Said it kept the bones warm. I remember him telling me, "Mark, paper's cheap, but memory, that's the real ledger." I thought about that as I sat with a copy of their fake deed in my lap. Paper lies. But I had the truth. And this time, I wasn't backing down. You know what people don't tell you? When someone tries to steal from you, and you stop them, nobody claps. Nobody rushes to your defense. They just get real quiet. Or worse, they pick sides. 2 days after Elaine filed the fraud report, I stopped by the county recorder's office to check on the status. The clerk, a woman maybe in her 60s, Didn't even try to hide the look she gave me. Like I was some greedy bastard trying to kick his own mother out. She leaned over the counter and said, "Family stuff like this, really sad." I didn't argue, just nodded and walked out. What was I gonna say? That my mother and brother forged documents to rob me? That I'd spent the last 2 months preparing for this exact betrayal? People don't believe the quiet one. They believe the loud ones. The charming ones. Jake can smile and throw his arm around you and say, "My brother's always been a little off." And they'll believe him. Because I don't talk much. I don't smile on command. I tried not to let it get to me, but it did. At work, I kept missing deadlines. Nothing big, just enough for clients to start asking questions. My mind wasn't in code, it was back in that house running down all the ways this could go wrong. I had Elaine and the trust was solid, but I still found myself checking locks twice. Watching the cameras at 2 a.m. Then came the email. From Jake. No subject line. Just one sentence. "You seriously want to do this?" I didn't respond. He sent another one a few hours later. Longer this time. Said I was tearing the family apart. Said mom couldn't sleep, that she was sick with stress. That grandpa would be ashamed of me. And yeah, that one landed. I closed the laptop and just sat there. Grandpa would have hated all of this. He was a quiet man too. Didn't like drama. Hated dishonesty. But I also knew what he'd told me. Years ago, out in that same field behind the house. Don't mistake peace for surrender, Mark. Sometimes silence is a stand. So I stood. Elaine filed for a cease and desist. Sent it to both of them. Registered mail. No ambiguity. The house was mine. The trust made that clear. Any further action would be considered harassment and referred to the sheriff. I waited for backlash. Expected more threats, some nasty texts. But instead, silence. Which somehow felt worse. At first, I thought the silence meant they were regrouping. Planning something worse. I kept expecting another letter. Maybe a lawyer of their own. But weeks went by. Nothing. Then I heard through a mutual friend, my old high school buddy Dave, who still lives near mom, that Jake had been fired. Apparently, someone tipped off his job about the forged documents. No idea who. Could have been the county office. Could have been Elaine. Or maybe they just figured it out themselves. Sales jobs don't take kindly to employees tangled in legal fraud. Dave said Jake went ballistic. Threw a chair at the wall during a meeting. Got escorted out by security. His wife moved out the following weekend. Part of me wanted to feel bad. I mean, we grew up together. Played Nintendo in the same basement. Shared bunk beds until he was 13. But when I tried to find that feeling, guilt, sympathy, it just wasn't there. I was empty. Like watching a slow-motion car crash you already predicted miles before it happened. Then mom started calling again. Not to apologize. Never that. She left voicemails full of shame disguised as concern. "You've made this so much harder than it had to be. I don't know why you're doing this to us." Us. She always grouped herself with Jake. Like they were one unit. The real family. I was just a stubborn offshoot. The background character with no lines. It had always been that way. When I was 7 and Jake broke the neighbor's window, I got blamed for not watching him. When I got into college, she didn't come to graduation, said Jake had a soccer game. So no, I didn't feel sorry when her name started showing up on church forums. Gossip spreading about some situation with her oldest son and a house. Nothing direct, of course. But in those circles, even a raised eyebrow is enough to kill a reputation. Elaine called to give me an update. Everything was settled, trust validated, fraud documented, case closed. If they tried anything else, we'd go straight to court. She paused before hanging up and said, "I know you're not celebrating, but you should know, you did everything right." I didn't say anything, just sat in the quiet, holding the phone long after the line went dead. Everything right, but it didn't feel good, just final. The hardest part wasn't the lies or the legal mess. It was what came after, the stillness. After all the paperwork, all the voicemails and threats and county filings, it was just me. In a house built for a family, now holding one man's quiet. I started sleeping there full-time in early May. I brought over a mattress and a few boxes. The place was old but solid. Needed some work, new roof, updated plumbing, but nothing urgent. Still, I caught myself wandering room to room like a guest. Like I was squatting in someone else's life. The air was different at night. Cooler. Sometimes I'd wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. and just lie there listening. No traffic. No neighbors yelling. Just creaking wood and the occasional owl outside. For the first time in years, I could hear my own thoughts. Not sure I liked them. I kept waiting for a knock on the door. For Jake to show up drunk. For Mom to appear with some sob story or a casserole. But no one came. I took down the old pictures in the hallway, mostly of them. Jake in his football uniform, Mom at some school awards ceremony. I didn't throw them out. Just boxed them up and shoved them into the attic. I left one, though. A small photo of Grandpa sitting on the porch, hands folded, watching the fields. That one stayed. I think what hurt the most was realizing how little I missed them. I used to believe blood meant something. That family was family no matter what. But now? Now it felt like I'd been freed from a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. Like I'd been walking with stones in my shoes for years, and only just noticed they were gone. And yet it was lonely. I won't lie. I thought about calling people I hadn't talked to in years. College friends. A woman I dated once who liked antique shops and tea more than bars. But I didn't. Not yet. I needed to sit with the silence. To see if it would stop echoing. To figure out who I was without them defining me. One afternoon, I saw Mrs. Hanley out by her mailbox. She'd lived across from my grandparents since I was a kid, still wore that same pink visor and gardening gloves, still looked like she could bake a pie and snap your neck in the same afternoon. I tried to wave, but she just squinted at me, then turned away. Next day, her husband walked by while I was out front pulling weeds. He didn't say a word, just gave me that polite but distant nod people save for strangers or criminals. The kind that says, "We know." I didn't blame them. Word gets around in small towns. People talk. And what they heard was probably something like, Mark kicked his mother out of the family house. Not the whole story. Not the forged documents or the manipulation or the years of being treated like a spare tire. Just the surface-level version, neat and ugly. It hurt more than I expected. I didn't want sympathy. Just neutrality. Just someone to look at me without judgment. Instead, I got silence and side eyes. Even the mailman started acting weird. Used to wave from his truck. Now he just shoved the mail in and drove off like the box might explode. I told myself it didn't matter. That I didn't care what people thought. But the truth is, when you're finally free, you want someone to see it. To witness the before and after. To say, yeah, that was hell. And you made it out. But no one did. That weekend, I went to the local grocery store for the first time in months. Needed light bulbs and bread. As I walked past the frozen section, I saw a woman I used to know, Becky something. We'd gone to school together. She looked right at me and walked faster. Did she even recognize me? Or did she recognize the story? That night, I sat out on the porch with a beer and watched the sun go down. The fields were gold and quiet. That slow, heavy quiet you only get in the Midwest. I thought, maybe this is the price. Not just losing the ones who hurt you, but also losing the space they occupied. The space other people assumed was theirs. I wasn't the black sheep anymore. I was the sheep who wandered off and built his own damn fence. It came on a Tuesday. I'd been sitting at the kitchen table sorting through old bills when I saw the notification on my phone. Voicemail from an unknown number. I let it go. Wasn't in the mood. But something about it sat there, heavy. I finally pressed play. It was Mom. Her voice cracked halfway through the first sentence. Not performative, not like before. Just tired. Like all the venom had finally drained out. I don't know who you are anymore, she said. But I guess I never really did. She didn't apologize. Not really. But she talked about the house. About how it felt to walk through it now. Empty. She said it used to feel like a second home. Now it felt like a stranger's. Then she said, maybe we broke something in you, and you finally snapped. Or maybe we just never saw you clearly. That part stayed with me. She ended with, if you ever change your mind, you know where I am. Or maybe you don't. And that was it. I didn't call her back. I sat there for a long time, phone still in my hand, trying to feel something. Regret, maybe. Longing. But all I felt was clarity. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was asking for a version of me that never existed. The obedient son. The placeholder. The silence she could mold. But that version of me was gone. Maybe he was never real, to begin with. Later that night, I deleted the voicemail. Not out of anger. Not revenge. I just didn't want to carry it anymore. It felt like removing an old splinter, small, but deep. One you'd lived with so long you forgot it hurt. I changed the locks again. Not because I had to. Jake and Mom had long since stopped trying, but because it made me feel in control. There's something weirdly satisfying about replacing a lock. Screws, pins, a new key that turned smooth. Clean slate. No history. I did the whole house, front door, side door, even the basement hatch. Not because I was afraid. Just because I didn't want to leave any more open doors. The truth is, I didn't trust silence. Not theirs. Not mine. Silence was where the old patterns lived. The unsaid. The unresolved. I wasn't going back to that. The day I finished, I stood in the hallway, looking at the closet under the stairs. The one where Grandpa kept his tools. I hadn't opened it in months. Inside, everything was just how he left it. Pegboard hooks with labels written in his stiff handwriting. Jars of screws sorted by size. His toolbox. And on the top shelf, an old notebook wrapped in rubber bands. I sat on the floor and opened it. He'd used it like a journal, notes on weather, crop yields, repairs around the house. But in between the practical stuff, there were little bits of him. Things he never said out loud. Roof leaks again. Fixed it myself. No need to bother Mark, he's got enough on him already. Or, Susan didn't come by. Not surprised. But Mark did. Quiet like always. Good kid. Watches more than he talks. I didn't cry. I thought I would. But I just sat there, reading page after page of a man who saw me. Really saw me. It was strange, feeling more understood by someone dead than by the people still breathing. That night, I slept with the notebook on the nightstand. Like it was proof. Not just of ownership, but of presence. Of memory. Of who I'd always been. Even if they never noticed. The next morning, I made coffee and didn't look at my phone.
No voicemails, no e-mails, no ghosts.
Just a locked door. A quiet house. And for once, peace that didn't feel like surrender. Freedom is heavy.
No one tells you that.
People think once you cut ties, you'll feel lighter. And I did, at first. But eventually, the weight comes back in a different shape. Not grief. Not regret. Just space. All this open space where old expectations used to live. No more calls to answer. No family dinners to show up for out of guilt. No need to explain myself. And yet, sometimes I'd catch myself staring at the phone anyway. Out of habit, not hope. I didn't miss them. I missed the idea of them. The version I kept building in my head, where they loved me the way I needed. Where Mom was gentle and Jake was loyal. Where I wasn't just tolerated but wanted. That version never existed. But I kept it alive like an imaginary friend I was too old to believe in. It hit me hardest one Sunday when I drove into town for gas. I parked next to a family loading groceries. 2 kids fighting over a juice box in the back seat, Mom half laughing, Dad looking exhausted. It was nothing. A snapshot. But I couldn't stop watching. Not out of envy. Not really. More like curiosity. Like someone watching birds and wondering what it feels like to fly. I went home and finally unpacked the last box. The one labeled Dad stuff. It wasn't much. He died when I was 16. Quiet man, barely there. Inside were a few coins, some cufflinks, an old Zippo lighter, and a note folded so many times it was worn thin. It was in his handwriting. Just one line. Don't let them make you small. That wrecked me. He wasn't around much. Never stood up for me. But that one sentence made something click. Maybe he didn't know how to fight for me, but he saw it. Saw what they were doing. Saw me. I sat there for a long time, lighter in hand, the house quiet around me. Then I took the lighter out to the back field and burned the last of their fake documents. Watched them curl and vanish. Not because I needed revenge. Because I needed a funeral for the parts of me that kept waiting for love from people who never had any to give. June came soft and slow. The fields turned green. The air smelled different. Richer, warmer. I opened the windows for the first time in months and let the house breathe. And maybe I did, too. I'd started building a new routine. Coffee on the porch in the morning. Fixing small things, leaky faucet, sagging fence post. Working remote jobs again. Not full-time, but enough to feel steady. I even stopped checking the cameras every night. No one came. Sometimes, the quiet still felt unnatural. Like holding your breath too long and forgetting why. But more often now it felt earned. Like a silence I built with my own 2 hands. One evening, a truck pulled into the driveway. I froze, reflex, not fear. But it wasn't them. Just some guy delivering topsoil I'd ordered for the garden bed I was trying to revive. He waved. I waved back. Simple, normal. That felt like progress. I went into town again a week later. Different grocery store. Bigger.
No familiar faces. No whispers.
Just people grabbing eggs and cereal like I wasn't a headline in anyone's family drama. I forgot what that felt like, being invisible for the right reasons. When I got home, I sat out back with a notebook. Blank pages this time. Not grandpa's.
Mine.
I wrote down small things. Paint porch swing. Call Elaine, say thanks. Try talking to the woman at the farmer's market. Nothing earth-shattering. Just forward. The sun dipped behind the trees. Fireflies started blinking along the edge of the fence. I remembered chasing them here as a kid, jar in hand, thinking if I caught enough, I could light up the whole yard. Now I knew. You only need a few. It's July now. The house is mine. Not just on paper. Not just in court records or legal trusts. It feels mine. Like my breath lives in the walls now. Like my silence is sewn into the floorboards. I walk barefoot most days. Let the wood creak under me. Open the windows and leave them open. I'm not afraid of who might drive up anymore. Sometimes I catch myself smiling at nothing. Just existing. Without apology. I planted tomatoes in the side yard. They're growing slow, but they're growing.
There's something honest about that. No shortcuts. No pretending.
Just dirt and sun and time. Elaine called the other day just to check in. She said, "You handled it with more grace than most people I've seen in 30 years.
I didn't know what to say to that.
I'm not graceful. I was just tired of losing." She said if I ever wanted to sell the house, she could put me in touch with a realtor. I thanked her, but I said no. This house, these walls, they've seen too much. They've survived too much. It feels like throwing it away would be like throwing away the version of me that finally stood up. And I'm not ready for that. I think maybe I'll die here.
Years from now.
Quietly. With dirt under my nails and something warm in the oven. No big headlines. No drama. Just the soft closing of a chapter no one else knew was still being written. Jake never called again. Mom moved in with one of her cousins downstate.
I don't keep tabs.
Whatever weight they still carry, it's not mine anymore. People in town have stopped whispering. Or maybe I've stopped hearing them. Either way, I don't care. Some nights I sit on the porch, beer in hand, notebook on my lap, and think, this is what peace actually feels like. Not flashy. Not loud. Just still. Earned.